Hey everyone, welcome to Blood and Ink, a horror genre podcast. My name is JC Nolan, and we have a great episode for you today. We have a story about what happens when that scary monster gets out of your basement. Then we're going to recap the short film that's on Netflix called The Blue Drum. And after that, we will talk a little bit about The Stand, kind of review what's happened so far in the book, and talk about the characters and that character development that we've got going on there. Before we get into that, let's do some news, some horror news that I have found here in the internet. Some things I'm really excited for. First off, Happy Death Day 3 is moving forward. That is awesome. I love the first movie. The second movie was good too, but the first movie definitely was great. But yeah, according to Jessica Roth and director Christopher Landon, we do know that Happy Death Day 3 is moving forward. That's all the information we have, though. We don't know when, don't know really anything else about it, just that it's moving forward. But we have that to look forward to. Another thing, Shudder is set to launch a new ad-supported tier later this year. Again, there's no official launch date on that. We don't know what that pricing is going to be, but hey, it's cool. Something a little bit cheaper, help you out. We're all trying to save a buck these days, you know. Times are hard, so excited for that. Black Mirror is coming back. Actually, by the time that this episode is out, Season 7 should be out. That's coming out April 10th, and that will be 6 fresh new episodes. Can't wait for that. And last bit of news, Tim Curry is publishing a memoir. He's calling it Vagabond, and that's set to release October 7th and is a 256-page celebration of his life's work. And we all know Tim Curry is the GOAT. So, heck yeah, you know I'm going to be reading that. Well, that's all I have for horror news today, so let's get right into our Fright Bites. Our story today is titled The Tall Man in My Basement, written by Reddit handle StoryLord444. The basement was cold and damp, the air thick and stale. He stood there, towering, his head nearly brushing the ceiling. His features were long and slender, limbs stretched unnaturally. His arms hung low, fingers almost grazing his knees. His legs, thin and bone-like, made him stand at an impossible 12 feet tall. His mouth stretched wide, too wide, an unnaturally stretched mouth that revealed nothing but a black void inside. His eyes, deep and hollow, were pits of endless darkness, a void that seemed to pull everything in. I don't remember how he got there, or how it even got inside. All I know is I locked it deep in my basement, where it couldn't come out. Well, that was, until I found the basement door wide open. "Hello?" I said, staring into the dark basement that yawned open before me. My voice felt small, swallowed by the shadows below. Fear crawled up into my throat, thick and sour, like I might throw it up. I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking. Then I heard it. Soft, rattling noises from the kitchen. Gentle, deliberate, like something was moving in there. Something was in the house with me. I moved deliberately, each step slow and careful. My breath caught my throat. I watched my surroundings, making no noise as I crept towards the kitchen. And then I saw it. The creature from my basement stood at the sink, its towering frame hunched awkwardly beneath the ceiling. It stared out the window, motionless, its long, slender limbs hanging at its side. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just stood there, like it belonged. My heart slammed my ribs as I bolted to the front door, feet barely touching the ground. I didn't dare look back. I didn't need to. The roar came first, splitting the air like a thunderclap. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was deep, raw, and wrong, vibrating through my bones, rattling my teeth. My legs nearly gave out from the sound alone, but fear shoved me forward. I hit the door hard, bursting into the cold night air. My car was just ahead, parked in the driveway. My keys. I needed my keys. My hand dove into my pocket, fingers trembling as I fumbled them out. Behind me, the door exploded open with a splintering crack. Heavy, unnatural footsteps pounded against the ground, fast. Too fast. I didn't have to see it to know what was coming. I could feel it closing the distance. I reached the car, yanked the door open, and threw myself inside. My hand shook so badly the keys slipped from my fingers and hit the floor mat. No, no, no. I grabbed them again, forcing the key into the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, the sound of death. The creature lunged from the doorway, its long, bony limbs propelling it forward in a blur of twisted movement. It was nearly to the car. The engine roared to life. I slammed the gear into reverse, tires squealing as I stomped the gas. The car jolted backwards, throwing me against the seat as the creature lunged, just barely missing the hood. Its empty black eyes locked onto mine for a split second, burning into me before I peeled out of the driveway. I didn't stop. My foot stayed pressed on the floor, the car flying down the long, dark street. The night swallowed everything around me, but I didn't care where I was going, as long as it wasn't back there. Days passed. I barely slept, holed up in a cheap hotel room on the edge of town. The room smelled like old cigarettes and stale air, but it didn't matter. It had 4 walls and a locked door. Every night I checked the window just to be sure. That night was no different. I pulled back the curtain, heart already racing before I even looked. The parking lot below was empty, streetlights flickering weakly against the dark. For a second, I let myself believe I was safe. Then I saw it. Beyond the lot, past the stretch of cracked asphalt and the rusted chain-link fence, the woods began. Thick black trees rising like jagged teeth. And there, just at the edge where the trees met the night, it stood. The tall, twisted figure. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It only stared, watching me from the shadows. It found me. In an instant, I yanked the curtains shut, heart slamming against my ribs. My breath came in quick, shaky bursts. I sprinted to the door, peering through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway outside was empty, still, and quiet. I didn't know how fast it was. I didn't know how smart it was, but it found me. Hours crawled by. The TV droned on in the background, some late-night sitcom I wasn't paying attention to. I kept glancing at the window, half expecting to see it again. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud, just a soft, deliberate tapping. My head snapped towards the door, dread sinking like a cold weight in my chest. Who the hell could that be? I slid off the bed, feet hitting the floor. Before I reached the door, I heard it. A voice. Hello. I need help. Help me. Help me. I need help. Help me. It didn't sound right. It was flat, robotic, like a bad recording playing over and over. No emotion, no urgency. I froze. My throat tightened. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police, I shouted, voice trembling. The voice didn't stop. Help me. I need help. Open the door. Open the door. Open the door. It wasn't even yelling. Just that same lifeless droning tone. That was the worst part. The calmness. Like it wasn't asking. Like it was telling. My hands fumbled for my phone. I dialed 911, fingers shaking so hard I almost hit the wrong numbers. The voice stopped. My stomach twisted. It was like it knew. The operator answered. I explained everything. The voice, the knocking, the thing in the woods. My words tumbled out fast and frantic. We'll send someone, they said, but it might take a few hours. A few hours? My heart sank. My hand shook so badly the phone nearly slipped from my ear. I didn't hang up. I didn't move. I just stared at the door, waiting. Out of fear, I asked, Could you stay on the line until they come? I don't want to be alone. At first, she hesitated. I'm sorry, sir. We can't do that. We have to answer other calls. Please, I cut in, my voice trembling. "Please, I don't think I'll make it if I'm alone." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then quietly she said, "Okay, I'll stay." Relief washed over me, but it didn't chase the fear away. My eyes stayed locked on the door. Her voice was calm and gentle. "My name's Rachel. What's your name?" I swallowed hard. It's James." "All right, James, I'm here with you. You're not alone." My throat tightened. "Thank you. I think it's still out there." "Can you still hear the voice?" she asked softly. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. "No, it stopped when I called you, but the way it sounded..." I paused, shuddering at the memory. "It wasn't normal. It was like robotic, repeating itself over and over." Rachel was quiet for a moment, then said, "You're doing great, James. Just stay with me. The officers are on their way." I nodded again, trying to steady my breathing, but deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that the quiet wasn't a good thing. It felt like the calm before something worse. Rachel's voice came through the phone again, steady but a little more serious. "James, who's chasing you? Can you describe them?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, like the words got stuck halfway up. I don't know," I said finally. It wasn't a lie, not really. "It's really tall. Its arms are too long. Its mouth..." My voice trailed off. My mind replayed the black void, the hollow eyes. My stomach twisted. "Too long?" Rachel asked gently. "James, are you saying it's someone wearing a mask, or..." "No," I cut in, my voice cracking. "It's not a mask. It's not human." The line went quiet for a moment. I heard her breathe in. "James," she said slowly, carefully. "Are you sure? It could be someone in a costume, maybe. Sometimes when we're scared, our minds..." "I know what I saw," I snapped, louder than I meant to. My voice echoed off the hotel walls, and I flinched at how desperate I sounded. Rachel didn't react. She stayed calm. "Okay, I believe you. You're doing great, James. Just stay with me, all right? The officers are still on their way." My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. My eyes stayed locked on the door. I couldn't tell her the truth. Not all of it. If I said a monster crawled out of my basement and followed me to a hotel, they'd think I lost my mind. Maybe I had. But the thing outside, the voice, it wasn't in my head. It was real, and it wasn't gone. An hour passed in what felt like seconds. The room was still, but I couldn't escape the feeling that something was wrong. My pulse threaded in my ears, every breath a battle against the rising panic. Rachel's voice kept me tethered to reality, her calm words a thread I clung to. Then suddenly, a knock at the door. Knock, knock. I froze. The hairs on my neck stood up. "Hello, this is the police. Open the door. This is the police. Open the door." A wave of relief flooded through me. I wasn't alone. Finally, the officers were here. I rushed to the door, heart pounding in my chest. I glanced at my phone to make sure I hadn't missed anything, and there it was, the call still connected, Rachel's voice as steady as ever. "James, stay calm. They're on their way." I could hear the muffled voice of the officer outside repeating the same line. The door was within reach. I grabbed the handle, yanked it open, ready to let in the safety of the police. But there it stood, the creature. It towered, its limbs unnaturally long, bent in sickening angles. Its black, empty eyes locked onto mine. The grin that stretched across its face was wide and chilling. Too wide. I looked down at my phone in trembling hands. The screen read, 911, what's your emergency? A smile twisted across the creature's face. It wasn't the officer. It never was. I staggered back, my blood running cold. My stomach dropped into a pit of icy dread. And then it hit me. Rachel never asked for my location. I had never been on the phone with the police. I had been talking to it. God help me. What a great OG creature feature feel this story has to it. I thought the voice behind the door was super creepy, just that thought of it repeating the same thing over and over again. That kind of spooked me for sure. Again, that story was The Tall Man in My Basement by Reddit handle StoryLord444. Go check out the other stuff they have on their page. If you have a story that you want read on the podcast, go ahead and send it in. That email is bloodinkpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd love to read it and get it on the show. Moving forward here, we're going to go into our movie recap. The movie this week was The Blue Drum. It is a short horror released in 2022, and you can find that on Netflix. It was written and directed by Angelita Mendoza, and the movie had a budget of $25,000, which for a movie is not a lot of money. That's basically nothing. But again, this is a short, so we do expect it to have a smaller budget anyway. I will start off by saying this was not my favorite. It wasn't my favorite, but let's get into it. So the movie starts off with Letitia. She's a young, middle-aged woman. She just lost her father, and our opening scene is Letitia. Well, she's saying her eulogy, and there's the family there at the father's home, what I assume is the father's home, just kind of a family in grief. You hear her eulogy being presented in the background as the family's kind of moving around this house. And right off the bat, we meet Ruben. They don't really say who exactly Ruben is, but we're thinking he's either the ex-husband, ex-fiance, something like that. And he's present at the home, and he notices that Letitia is still wearing her wedding ring. So he kind of points that out, and then he gets on her for not letting him or other people in. Not letting them in. She's just kind of maybe pushing people out, blocking them off, putting up her own walls, things like that. But like, Ruben, dude, this is somebody that I'm assuming that you love because you are there to support them during their father's loss. But yeah, she just lost her father and buried him that day. Like, probably not the time to be bringing up her not letting you in. Like, let the woman grieve. So while that happens, a jar full of what looks like marbles, but we learn to be ball bearings, falls off the mantle and breaks. So ball bearings go everywhere. There's two children in the home who everyone kind of looks at and is like, oh, hey, you just did that. But they say that they didn't. Whose kids are these? We don't know. Are they Letitia's kids? I don't think so. They're really not brought up again. But the kids kind of suck, and somebody tells them, hey, don't play with that. That's not a toy. And the kid's response is, well, it looks like a toy. First of all, it's a ball bearing. It doesn't look like a toy. I don't know what they're talking about with that, but, to each their own, I guess. So Letitia goes to grab a broom to clean up this mess that these children made, and that's where we first see this white door. It's a pretty cool shot of the door, and we're immediately like, oh, something's behind that door, and it's creepy, and you just get a creepy vibe from the door. You also start hearing strange noises from the door, kind of scratching noises, things like that. Well, Letitia grabs the broom, she goes to start cleaning up this mess, and then we meet Aunt Norma, who walks in and immediately starts talking about selling her late father's things. This starts an argument between Aunt Norma and Letitia, and Letitia is like, hey, wow, how dare you? We just put him in the floor, and here you are just trying to sell all this stuff while we're all here in mourning. Norma goes on and is like, well, your father is actually a piece of crap, and I'm so glad he was a good father, but he was an awful brother, and an awful husband. Again, this is crazy. Like, her dad just died. Everybody needs to chill out here. Like, yeah, we can talk about selling his stuff later. Like, let the woman grieve. She literally just had the funeral, is what I'm assuming. So all these people need to chill out. When we move forward to the next scene, it is later that night and Letitia is laying in bed. She begins to hear some strange noises and grabs a small knife from her bedstand and goes to investigate these noises. That's where we find the white door again. It seems like these noises are coming from behind that white door. So she opens it and finds, I guess you would say like a built-in bench seat, kind of built into the wall, and it sounds like scratching is coming from underneath that bench seat. So she uses the knife, kind of pops open that seat, and within that seat she finds a hidden compartment. And there, in that compartment, is a rose, which is not dead, and a photo album. The album containing pictures of herself and a note that says, "I love you and I will always be by your side." So initially we were thinking, oh, how cute, this is from her dad. But then we're also thinking, well, why is it hidden away like this? Well, she thinks that note is from her dad, but finds out it is actually from her mom. And this is where I'm going to sidestep. I don't remember, and you guys can let me know if you remember, I don't remember hearing anything about her mom. Like, did I miss that? I mean, I just assumed that her mom was also dead because she's been nowhere in the scenes, so I don't remember them saying anything about her. But Ruben, the ex, pops up. What is he doing? Why is he still in the house? Wasn't Letitia just laying down, about to go to sleep? He's just chilling there somewhere in the house? So yeah, if you can tell, I don't like Ruben. I think he's annoying. He's an annoying character. But he asks Letitia what she's doing. She shows him what she's found. And in true Ruben sense, he totally ignores what she has said and is like, hey, I'm going to stay here so that way I can watch over you. Make sure that you're okay. I don't want you to be here alone. Well, Letitia's like, no, I don't want you to stay. No, you're not staying here. And this man argues with her. He's like, no, I am staying. Don't worry, I've got you. I want to sleep in the guest bedroom. To this, I'd be like, kick that man out. Listen, dude, no means no. She does not want you here. We don't know what you did, but I don't trust you. And you seem a little pushy, so I don't like you. But our main character, Letitia, she smiles and she says, okay. And that's, lost a little respect for her there. I'm like, girl, stick to your guns. You don't want him there. But whatever. We fast forward, and it is the middle of the night. Letitia wakes up to more scratching noises, and she goes to check it out for herself. Mistake number one. You got your man Ruben there, and you're going by yourself with whatever. I think she still had that little knife that she had earlier, her little weapon. She's going to check out all by herself in the middle of the night. No, girl, make some noise. Why are you being so quiet? Why are you sneaking around trying to figure it out? Or, do what I would do. Lock that bedroom door and just stay put. That's what I would do. But anyway, she goes downstairs, hearing these weird noises. It seems like it's coming from underneath the floor at this point. And it scares her. She does a big stomp on the ground, and those noises stop. Suddenly, a ball bearing goes rolling towards a vent out of nowhere. When I tell you the way I would scream and wake everybody who is within a 1 mile radius of that house up. But she does not scream. She just kind of looks at it and goes to pick it up. All of a sudden, this wild noise comes out of the floor vent. Again, this is another time I would scream, and I wouldn't be in that house anymore. I'm sorry. Like, hey, I know it's the middle of the night, but we're packing it up. We're leaving. At this point, Letitia goes to that white door again, and she's trying to find her way down to the basement. But at this point, the door is locked. Why is the door suddenly locked? It was open before. She can no longer get in there, and she's trying to pop it open with that knife, but she can't. This is when she goes outside, and I'm thinking, all right, yeah, she's going outside. She's leaving. No, she's not leaving. She's finding an exterior entrance into the basement, which she does find, kind of cellar door style, opens those up, and enters this basement by herself at night. Again, this is by herself at night where crazy scratching and screeching noises are coming from. That's wild. But she goes in there, searching through the basement. There's some pretty cool shots in the basement, I will say. The shots are kind of confusing, where it's like there's stuff everywhere and there's random doors in there, and she's having to move stuff out of the way, and she just has her little flashlight. So I did enjoy the creepy feeling of the basement. I thought that was good. While searching through the basement, she finds a blue drum. Hey, it's the name of the movie. And while listening by the blue drum, it sounds like these noises are coming from in there. So without any thought, she begins to try to open it. Again, wild. The way I would be like, well, whatever's in there is going to stay in there. But yeah, she tries opening it up. Ruben shows up out of nowhere. Freaking Ruben, what are you doing? Well, he's like, hey, Letitia, it is the middle of the night and you're down here in the basement. What are you doing? So Leticia explains, hey, I've been hearing some weird noises. It's been waking me up. Something's in here and I have got to open it up. At this point, she is hell-bent on opening this barrel. And Ruben's like, okay, well, let's just try to get it out of that corner, out of the basement, and we'll try to open it up somewhere else. So they start trying to move the barrel, which seems very heavy, obviously. The barrel knocks over, a bunch of ball bearings are in the barrel. They go spilling out, and hey, along spills out a skeleton. So the skeleton, let me say, it was hilarious. Okay, the skeleton was like something that you bought from a Halloween store for like $30. So I did enjoy that, and I thought it was funny. So Leticia looks at the skeleton, and she pulls a ring off the skeleton, and she's like, oh my god, it's my mother! And she starts crying. Again, just with how awful the skeleton looked, I found this scene really funny. Ruben ends the movie with the final line, she never left. And the short ends. That's how it ends. So one of the blaring things here for me is, again, I don't feel like we ever talked about the mother, so I had never known the mother left. They never built that part of the story. So at the end, I was like, oh, okay, I guess the mom left, but not really, so here she is. So my thoughts on this movie, we'll start with the acting. Our main character, Leticia, she did okay. Her acting was all right. The rest of the acting, definitely not done well. Not the best. Our storyline, kind of bland. Felt like there was plot points missing in the build-up. Not anything we haven't seen before. Okay, her father passed away. She finds out, he actually killed her mother and hit her in the basement. All right, well, I've seen that done before, and, I've seen it done maybe a little bit better, but I will give the movie, hey, it's only a 16-minute movie. There's only so much that we can fit in there, but I just thought they could have done a little bit better job with that. There were some cool shots. They got some cool shots of the basement door that made you feel really creepy. Some cool shots in the basement that we talked about. So I really enjoyed that. The skeleton, again, that thing's got to go. We could do better than that. But that was a no-go for me. What was done really well, something I really liked, was actually the buildup of suspense and tension during this movie. There was really not a score for this movie. If I recall, they used a lot of silence, and every once in a while there were some eerie noises or, some faint something, but no real music. I actually feel like this really added to the tension of the movie, and I know that music also can add to the tension of the movie, but for this movie, I feel like the silence actually fit it very well. Overall, though, I give this movie a 2 out of 5 stars, and really those 2 stars is just for the ability to create that suspense. Because like I said, while watching the movie, I was actually on the edge of my seat for a good portion of it, just wondering what was going on. So yeah, altogether 2 out of 5 stars. Would I recommend it? Probably not. I think Netflix was trying to do this thing with shorts for a while, where they were putting out some short stories, short movies, things like that. And supposedly they do have some good other shorts. This is the first Netflix short horror that I've watched, so I'll just have to look out for some more. Again, not my favorite on this one though, but still enjoyed watching it, still had a good time, and still glad to talk about it on the podcast. So if there are any on-screen horrors that you want recapped on the show, just go ahead and email them over. That's bloodinkpodcast@gmail.com, and we can go ahead and take a look at that. For next week, what I want to recap and review is actually the first episode of the Season 7 Black Mirror. That first episode is going to be Common People, and that's starring Chris O'Dowd and Rashida Jones. I'm excited to see Rashida Jones in this. I have never seen her in anything kind of spooky, horror-y, scary, nothing like that. Rashida Jones, you'd most likely know her from Parks and Recs as well as The Office. Looks like she is in maybe some sort of drama on Apple TV. It's called Silo, but I have not seen that. And then Chris O'Dowd, I'm not really familiar with anything that he's in that I saw on his IMDb page. But excited to see them both in that, and definitely something I want to recap. I love Black Mirror. I think all the seasons have been great. Obviously, some episodes better than others, but I enjoy most of what they put out. And that first episode is called Common People. A little synopsis of that episode. When a medical emergency leaves school teacher Amanda fighting for her life, her desperate husband Mike signs her up for Rivermind, a high-tech system that will keep her alive, but at a cost. So yeah, excited to dive into that and can't wait for the new season to start. And that leaves us with our last order of business, book club. I talked a little bit about book club last week, but really didn't want to get too into it because I wanted people to have a chance to get the book and possibly read some of it if they wanted to, and if they wanted to join in on this journey. So that book that we are reading this month is The Stand, written by Stephen King, published in 1978. I believe I am about 22% of the way through this book. And what I want to do is recap what has happened so far in the book and the main characters that are showing themselves in the book. So the story starts off at a government facility where they are studying and creating viruses, possibly for viral warfare, which we all know the government is not supposed to do. Well, they do create a very communicable and deadly disease that quickly gets out of control. Although they did put blockades in the way to not allow this to happen, of course, blockades don't always work and things happen. And so one of the soldiers realizes what's happening and is able to leave the facility, although they shouldn't have been able to. And this is where we start the spread of the virus, which begins to spread rapidly as we're meeting our characters. We begin to notice small symptoms presenting around them, and King does a really great job of making every headache, every cough, every sneeze just put you right on the edge of your seat, even if it's, well, this character probably has a hangover, or this character was out in the sun all day. You don't know if it's just because of that, or if they are actually having symptoms present from this virus. The government's quickly and quietly trying to quarantine everyone and control the spread, and this reminds me so similarly to when COVID had began. But, when COVID had began, we as a country had news outlets and the CDC that were spreading information, which was great. On the other end, we also had news outlets and certain people in the government spreading disinformation, and things became really confusing. For the most part, we did quarantine. I'm not sure how much that really helped slow down the spread. In my experience, not so much. It didn't really seem to slow down as much as we would hoped. I felt like the quarantine wasn't enough, but that can also be seen in this book as well. The government had really tried to hone in on those first, patient zero and then onward and quarantine them out, but that didn't work. In the book as well, it seems like most of the news, most of the freedom of speech is being controlled by the government. They're not really allowed to put any real news out there until a little bit later in, when things are just going crazy at this point. People are dying, bodies are overflowing in the streets, and the hospitals are overrun with sick people. And at this point, the newscasters feel like they can no longer keep this quiet and actually stage a coup, multiple coups, to say what they need to say to the American people. We start seeing college students fighting back against army people that are, I say army people, soldiers that are present seeming just about everywhere, trying to keep peace. Well, they're not really trying to keep peace, they're trying to keep people quiet. By the time, though, that the news of the actual virus and what is going on comes out, it's really too little too late. Most of the towns that we're in with all of our characters are becoming empty or already pretty much empty. Like I said, those hospitals have been overrun. There was scenes in the book saying they were taking truckloads of bodies and just dumping them into the waters. So yeah, the death and downfall of life in this book happens so suddenly. It almost feels like within the blink of an eye. And we are left with our main characters in empty towns, empty cities. And really, we have to read what comes next. That's kind of where I've left off. I think it's funny I say it happens within the blink of an eye, but I'm probably about almost 300 pages through. So it's really not within a blink of an eye, but in the book's timeline, it does seem to happen pretty quickly. There are a plethora of characters in this book, but the ones that are immune to the virus or seem immune to the virus are probably going to be our main characters from what I'm guessing, since everybody else is kind of dying off. So I kind of want to do just a recap of the characters themselves. We'll start off with Stu Redman. He is one of our earliest characters, just a countryman, kind of one of the good old boys, and one of the first characters we meet. Stu is present at his friend's gas station when the AWOL soldier from the Project Blue station comes barreling in his vehicle and smashes into the gas station pumps. This is the first contact with the virus, so Stu and all of his friends become in contact with the virus and eventually get taken in by the government to a government hospital where Stu is kept in the dark. He doesn't know what's going on, and he is being studied because he is not getting sick. While everyone else that was at the gas station or families with somebody that was at the gas station end up dying. They were also taken into the same hospital and end up dying. We think this government hospital is safe. They were taking a lot of precautions while dealing with the patients, but the virus infiltrates those working at the facility, and that is as far as we know with Stu Redman at the moment. He's still at the hospital. Next, we'll talk about Larry Underwood. He's a new and upcoming artist living in California, kind of getting swept up in fame and success, being used by those around him. Ends up throwing this huge party, lots of drugs involved, and he needs to pay for those drugs. But he does not have the money to pay for those drugs, even though he currently has a hit single kind of making its way up the radio waves, I guess you could say. He's gotten paid a little bit for that, but he's not rich by any means, so he ends up skipping town because of this drug debt and goes to his mother's home. And she lives in New York City, which is not the place I would want to be during an epidemic, pandemic, any sort of virus. I wouldn't want to be in New York City, but hey, he doesn't know that this is happening yet. He seems to have a little kind of tumultuous relationship with his mother. She knows that he kind of uses people and always kind of figures out a way to get what he wants. She feels like he has never really grown up. And then he, in return, feels like his mother is not the most soft and nurturing woman, but he definitely loves her. She loves him, and she has shown her love, maybe not in the usual mothering way, but by taking care of him and making sure that his needs are always met. Even at this age, where he's older now, he goes to his mom's house and she lets him in. She buys all of his favorite things, helps him with money, things like that. So it's obviously she still loves him, even if she doesn't show it in that usual way. Well, his world gets a little turned upside down as this pandemic starts and his mother gets sick. And this leaves Larry alone in New York City while the pandemic is just ravishing the whole area. Next, we got Franny Goldsmith. I actually really like Franny's character. I didn't think I was going to based off of how it started because she's kind of a weird, giggly girl, and that's what she initially is portrayed as. But she's actually just a young woman. She's just one woman. Just one young woman living with her older parents. And she discovers she's newly pregnant. She's with this guy named Jesse. She doesn't really want to be but now she has this baby. She's breaking up with him, but it seems like she's going to keep the baby. Her mother's super tough. She's a strict woman who has been changed since the death of Franny's brother, and she became kind of cold and distant through Franny's life, caring more about social status than what's left of her family, while her father is the complete opposite of that. He's super caring, he's a soft, gentle man, he's there for his daughter all the time, but really doesn't want to create any waves between him and his wife, so when his wife is acting up or acting kind of cranky, he just lets her be that way. Well, Franny tells her mom that she is pregnant, and her mom ends up losing it. She becomes completely manic. She's wild and out. And finally, her father steps in and puts his foot down, saying that they're going to be there for their daughter. Well, both Franny's parents sadly end up passing away due to the virus. Her mother goes first, and closely followed by her father. Franny is now alone, pregnant, and had to bury her father in his garden. So, very sad. Next character we have is Nick Andrews. He comes across as a honest, hardworking young man who was orphaned at a young age. He is a deaf and mute character, which is actually a really cool concept to have. I've never thought of how hard that must be for a deaf and mute person to be in end of world times. It's pretty funny. A lot of the times if he is reading, he reads people's lips to kind of understand what they're saying and then writes down his own thoughts so that way he can communicate with people. But when somebody is saying something that he doesn't want or doesn't like, he can just turn away and kind of not see it and not have to take that in. He ends up in a town to do some honest work, but ends up getting mugged and beaten by some local thugs. He gets help from the sheriff in town, who's able to apprehend the criminals. One of the criminals is actually his brother-in-law, so kind of makes for a little bit of a awkward family dinners. And through Nick's time spent with the sheriff, they end up becoming really close. That's before the sheriff falls ill and passes away. Nick stays to take care of the sheriff's wife, who also ends up passing away, and at this point, he's trying to take care of the incarcerated muggers. They begin to get sick. 2 out of the 3 pass away, and he releases the last prisoner, who is also showing signs of having the virus. At this point, Nick is still in the town, but the town is empty, and he's kind of trying to figure out what to do next. Our next character is Lloyd Henreid. He is a petty criminal that goes on a killing/burglary spree with his friend Poke. He gets caught up and arrested. He initially appears happy when getting to the jail, as he is celebrated of sorts among the prisoners. They kind of think he's a little celebrity. But that excitement quickly fades as he learns he is a candidate for death row. That's where we leave Lloyd Henreid's character for the moment. And the last character I want to talk about is Randall Flagg. I'm kind of confused by this character myself. He is presented as a dark figure who maybe is the embodiment of evil. I did a little reading on this character, and he's actually present in another Stephen King novel called The Dark Tower. I have not read that novel, but I think it's pretty cool that they're somehow in the same universe. Well, in the story, Randall is walking down the road and says he can feel something horrible brewing, and this is kind of giving him power. At this point, he begins to levitate off the ground, and other than that, I don't know much about this character at the moment. The sudden fantasy of this character feels a little random in placement, but I'm excited to see where this goes. I don't know if he was actually levitating, or if he is just crazy, or if he's actually magic. So, interested to see what kind of character development we get with Randall. And that's kind of where we're left at with all our characters. At this point, most of the towns are empty. Believe that's because most of the people are dead, and now we just have to keep reading on to see what comes next. But I do have some questions for you guys. Do we think the U.S. government would act in the same fashion that we saw the government acting in this story? Do we believe that they did during the height of our own pandemic? I don't know, just some things to think about. If the truth got out there, would people believe it? Would people listen? In this story, I feel like our characters didn't really get a chance to choose whether to believe or not to believe. While in our pandemic, people did get information, and a lot of people did choose to ignore it or to not believe in it. Although the horror of this story is crazy, I think the reality of what happened in our own pandemic was actually a little bit scarier. And I do think that's something that maybe King got wrong so far in this book. He didn't, in my opinion, so far, hasn't captured the true ignorance or disbelief that people can have when some unwanted truth stares them in the face. Somewhere I think that is captured really well is in the movie Don't Look Up. So if you haven't seen that movie, it's really good. It's very frustrating, but go check out that movie. One of the things I found really haunting so far while reading this novel is just the people talking about their everyday lives and just living their everyday lives, having regular conversations, regular thoughts about the future. And while reading that, we know that that future they're talking about or thinking about, it won't exist. Not only does this create a little suspense, but it creates a lot of sadness from us to the characters, like a lot of sympathy, almost like we're grieving for them before the characters even know to grieve, and we're kind of end up waiting for that shoe to drop. I do want to point out that some of the language in this book is definitely a little shocking and not stuff we're used to seeing. I know this book was written in 1978, but I did find some of the language a little shocking, so just be wary about that. That's as far as I have gotten, though, in our book club, so I look forward to continue to read this book and to talk about it again next week. Well, that brings us to the close of our second episode, so if you've listened this far and listened this long to just me jabbering on, thanks! You finished the episode, and I really appreciate that. So if you like this, just go ahead, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, review, all those good things. Don't forget to send in your recommendations to our email. Again, that's bloodinkpodcast@gmail.com. Other than that, I'll catch you all in the next episode.